afternoon. How is everybody? Good to be with you. I was trying to talk Samara into bringing our branding bar in here to share with us, so hopefully she'll be joining us soon. Sean and I appreciate your interest in branding and look forward to spending some time with you this afternoon. This is casual. Please stop us, shout out some questions. We'd love to answer any questions. But you'll get to hear about branding from the perspective of a consultant, provider of branding assistance, and a client. So we had the pleasure of working with Overland Park and recently wrapping up their program. All right. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have heard someone from North Star talk about branding before? A few folks. Okay, good. New people. Well, we've been doing this now for about 10 years, talking about place branding and community branding. And you know what? We haven't been doing a good job because branding has a branding problem. It's used to mean a bunch of different things, isn't it? People use it to mean all kinds of things. Advertising, marketing, promotion, PR. It's used interchangeably with all of these different terms and phrases. Probably in large part thanks to us consultants and coming up with cute derivations of the name and that type of thing. But with all that noise, I think the public has just chosen the simplest definition of a brand. And what would you guess that would be? Exactly. A logo. And I have a question. I've asked this question quite a bit across the country. How many of you, let me see hands, raise them up high, have ever moved your home somewhere because they had a great logo? How many of you have ever moved your business somewhere because they had a great logo or a slick slogan? Or even really spend any discretionary time anywhere on vacation? A logo isn't a strategy. A big part of the branding problem that branding has is being relegated to just a logo. So we want to talk about that a little bit, suggest some strategies for defining a branding initiative a little differently. And I'm assuming everybody in the room has a logo. Let me see hands of how many people have an agreed upon strategic platform for your community's brand. Okay, see a few smattering of hands. Sean, raise your hand. Thank you. An interesting thing we've seen in these villainous economic times that we're in, many cities are actually packaging their initiative about branding as strategic planning, research for economic development, avoiding some of the baggage that the phrase community branding has with it. I think is Dan Nolan here from Wilsonville? He'll tell you the story. They were going down this road, and before they even got to the RFP process, the newspaper ran a story about spending $80,000 for a new logo. That effort has now been tabled. Richmond, California, went through the RFP. It took staff probably 2 years to herd the cats and all the organizations to go through the process. Got it approved, got council to approve it. The next day, a disc jockey spent an hour of his show asking why the murder capital of California is spending money on a new logo. So it derailed all of that effort. There's a lot of baggage around it, so there's a lot of education necessary to make this more than just a logo. And part of the problem is a lot of places or councilmen or folks will go into this process thinking about this simple equation, this simple relationship. And this is a pretty superficial approach that your identity is going to equal your image. That somehow if we can spruce up and have a cool brand graphic identity, it is going to change our image. So rightfully so, that comes under a good bit of scrutiny. Because it's about a logo selling someone something. So only perfect integrity can sway public opinion. Some people may think community branding is about coercion or a sign that local government is really just concerned with public opinion. But place branding should be exactly the opposite of that. It should be that government desires a city and its policies to be driven by its true identity. And it's a lack of those core values and principles that creates poor and muddled policies and a poor reputation. That inner certainty of knowing exactly who you are and what's both relevant and distinct about your community creates good policy, clear behavior, and a good reputation. So if you think about identity more in terms of fundamental values, beliefs, what's true and distinctly yours, and branding is more about good governance, good leadership than presentation and rhetoric. So if this definition of identity resonates with you and it goes a little deeper, then something else really has to occur in this relationship between identity and image. And that's behavior. Who you are determines how you behave. How you behave determines how you're perceived. A logo really doesn't affect behavior. But if you've got a strategic platform underneath that brand, then you can connect to that in all manner of ways. And that's where success really occurs, and this gets a lot deeper than a logo. So just to recap, brand identity, brand behavior, and brand image. So brand identity is the strategy and expression of that strategy, the core concept of the community clearly and distinctly expressed. A bit of a signpost. Can't do everything, but it needs to be strategic and work. Brand behavior is the idea of bringing your two-dimensional brand to life in a three-dimensional community. Policy, actions, initiatives, and developments. And we're going to drop anchor here a little bit and share some stories about how this can work with communities. And then your brand image, or as we like to say, what people say about you when you're not around. And that's ultimately what you're trying to affect, is your reputation. Okay? So we've had the pleasure now of doing exactly this with well over 100 communities across the United States, and assisting them in improving their reputation and their identity, behavior, and image. And the process that we go through, and I would encourage you to go through, whether you do this in-house or work with a local provider or however you may go about it. If your city manager comes to you or a council member suggests, or it comes up in a work session, hey, we need to do something about our image. Let's go make some new ads. Let's go create a new image. However you can scale this, go through this process. And it's really about this hourglass of understanding, insights, and then imagination. And we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the research. Sean will go into it a little bit. But look at information under these three camps. The vision of your stakeholders and the community, the perception of your consumers, where you stand competitively, taking all of this research information, boiling it down to a strategic platform. You can actually get a group of stakeholders around a table equipped with research to agree on a strategic platform. Nigh near impossible to get that same group of people to agree to a logo. Okay, you've got to start here. Then the discussion is strategic, not about I like a duck better than a goose, or it should be blue instead of green. With approval of that, then how can you take that thought and put it to work in the stuff that you do? Your brand identity and your communications, yes, but also in your behavior. How can it affect your city's behavior? And then in turn, how can it affect your imitation, your reputation? So, the purple circle is community. And if you'll give me your business card, or I'll be happy to send this presentation to you so you don't have to take too copious notes. All right, brand identity, behavior, and image. I want to spend some time talking about behavior, and we'll have a little fun here for a moment. I borrowed an old marketing axiom from an interpersonal relationship to look at the idea of it. Let's look at sales first, just direct sales. I'm a great lover, this guy says directly. Now, this may work for Sean, I don't know. Advertising. Adds a little frequency to the message. How about telemarketing? Hello? I'm a great lover.